Ba 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 ba. Ba da 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 da. Ba da ba ba da ba ba ba. Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. How are you? It's great to see you and welcome back. Today, I'm going to be attempting to make a homemade Big Mac. Now, I know lots of people have done this already, but I am going to be testing a recipe that comes from this. I printed this out. This is the PDF. It's called the McMenu Do-It-Yourself McDonald's Restaurant Recipes. I first learned about this in an article I'll put down below when I was researching the famous original McDonald's French fry recipe, and this came up. This is an anonymous PDF that is very extensive. It is 33 pages long, and the theory goes that it was written by someone probably in McDonald's management, a supervisor, someone that knows a lot about McDonald's, because the instructions in these recipes are so very specific. It talks about toasting the buns, dressing your burgers, the type of ketchup, talks about wrapping your burgers, reheating the burgers, the types of pickles. Like, it's just so very specific. So the very first thing we need to do is make our special Big Mac sauce. Now, according to this recipe, we need to mix it and then microwave it and then allow it to cool. So we need to do all that first before we assemble our burger. So let's do that. 1/4 cup of mayonnaise. Special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame bun. Okay, got Miracle Whip. Brand new container Miracle Whip. Love that it has a little dollop on the top. 1/4 cup of that. 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Dried minced onion. This, I feel like, is key to get that McDonald's like hamburger flavor. 1 teaspoon of those. 1 teaspoon of sugar. And by the way, in case you were wondering, I am going to do a side-by-side comparison with a true Big Mac versus this. Granted, this recipe does seem to be a bit dated, from maybe the 1980s or 90s, because it refers to the McDLT. It turned into the McDeluxe or something. French dressing, look at that color. That's gonna give us that signature orangey color. Now, if I can just open the bottle. This is 2 heaping tablespoons. 1. Whoa, that's definitely heaping. Ay caramba. 1/2 tablespoon of sweet relish. Have you ever seen these measuring spoons before? Christina Cho sent these to me, and they are odd amount measuring spoons. So, for example, this one is 2 teaspoons, and this one is 2 tablespoons. I thought, I don't know, would I ever use those? And I actually use them quite a bit. The 2 tablespoon is really great for doling out cookie dough. 2 teaspoons of dill relish. Okay. Okay, 1 teaspoon of vinegar. Nope. 1 teaspoon of ketchup. Whisk this up, and then it says to microwave this for 25 seconds. Interesting, right? Okay, here we go. Give this one more whoopsie woo woo mixy mix. So now we're gonna refrigerate this and let this sit and melt together for at least an hour. This is the burger seasoning, and apparently this is shaken on every burger patty while it's cooking. 4 tablespoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of MSG, found in practically every tasty snack. 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now we're going to mix this all together. I bet this would be good on all kinds of things, because basically we're making an enhanced salt and pepper mix, right? Next, I'm going to share with you what I did already to prepare the hamburger patty. So the recipe says specifically to use 80% lean ground beef, and then to take your pound and to cut it into about 10 pieces. Then take a portion of meat and then sandwich it between 2 layers of parchment paper or wax paper, and then press it down nice and flat till you get a circle that's about 4 inches in diameter. Once you've done that to all of your patties, then you're gonna place them in the freezer so they are frozen. This is a cast iron griddle, and I'm gonna heat it up nice and cracking hot on medium high. The way I like to test if my griddle's hot enough is I splash it with a bit of water. And when the water really dances around, not just sizzles, but really dances like that, then I know that it's hot. Number 1 and number 2. Take our seasoning and liberally shake that on there. Menu recipe says that we're supposed to add a little pressure, which I don't really do, but they say that's what's done at McDonald's. So you see how it's getting a little, it's not really blood, but it looks like blood coming up on the surface. Now we're ready to flip. Scrape underneath, flip. Oh yeah, lovely. There we go. Those patties are almost done. Got a sesame bun, and we need the top and the bottom, and we need the bottom of another bun. I'm gonna pull my patties off. And in the residual little grease there, I'm gonna toast up my buns. Soak up that nice greasiness from the burgers. This shouldn't take any time at all. Alrighty, boom! Smoky in here. Alrighty, lovelies, we are ready to assemble our homemade Big Mac. This is the treasury of top secret recipes. I found this book at the thrift store for a whopping $2.99. It includes like everything you can think of, including all the fast food places, Olive Garden, Pizza Hut, McDonald's, Chili's, all the restaurant clones, Mrs. Fields. I want to try that one. They have a version of the Big Mac. I really do appreciate the diagram there because for as extensive as the McMenu is, it does not include the onions in terms of where to place those. But according to this, the onions are located right over the special sauce. The middle bun and the bottom bun. Special sauce. Reconstituted onions. I drained out the water. And on top of here, it's 1/8 of a cup of lettuce, which is like almost nothing. So just a little pinch. Iceberg lettuce that has been shredded. 1 slice of American cheese right there. Add one of our patties on top. And they said specifically to use the Vlasic brand pickles. So 2 pickle slices. My roommate in college, Sharon Rose, loved Big Macs. She's what I think of when I think of Big Macs. I think I've only had a couple in my entire life, actually. They also run by my dad. My dad likes Big Macs as well. As a kid growing up, I would always order the hamburger. I have a special love for the McDonald's hamburger. When I was pregnant with my first child, I had those every Friday after work. Just one McDonald's hamburger. It just hit the spot so well. At any rate, that's just my little story with a Big Mac. But I do find they're quite good. Now I can actually eat an entire one. I think that was another thing when I was younger. I couldn't finish a Big Mac, but I find them absolutely delicious. And let's finish building this. We're gonna put this on top of this. Our toasted bun on top of that. Dun, 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 the homemade McDonald's Big Mac. Look at that. That is a triumph. Look how tall it is. So I'm ready to eat this burger, but after reading the recipe, it says that I'm supposed to cue this or use the proper cueing method, which allows the flavors of the burger to meld together. And it makes sense because the cheese isn't really even melted. And then we're supposed to fold it like this. Now you let this sit for 5 to 8 minutes, let the flavors meld. And then when it's still wrapped, you microwave it for 15 seconds. That's the proper cueing method. All right, so we'll let that rest. I have microwaved this or cued it for 15 seconds, and I cannot wait to give this a taste and to compare it with the real deal Big Mac. So here we have them side by side, and let's go ahead and give these a taste. Now let's see what the homemade version looks like after it's been cued. Unwrap it. This wax paper reminds me of like the old school kind of diner hamburgers. Love those, kind of like In-N-Out style, wrapped in paper. So great. Alrighty, here it is. It looks great. Look at that. Beautiful. Now let's compare it with the real deal. Wee! Ooh, that looks pretty appetizing as well. Look at the even distribution of the sesame seeds, like that. See some pickle, see some lettuce there. Side by side, it looks like the McDonald's one is actually a little bit larger than the homemade one. Let's look at the interior of the real Big Mac. There's our patty. Definitely see lots of pepper there. Underneath that, we've got lettuce, pickle slice, sauce. Well, the sauce doesn't look as orange as I remember. Look at that. And then beneath that, we have another patty. Ooh, melted cheese, more sauce, definitely see some onions and some lettuce. So we got the order of the stack correct. Let's taste the original first. Alrighty, here we go. Itadakimasu. That's delicious. That dehydrated onion flavor is so much what I associate to a McDonald's hamburger. I love the crunch of the pickle. There's a little of that dilly, sour, briny, pickly flavor without being overpowered by the pickle. But I feel like it's such a key component to a Big Mac. And in that combination with the onions, such a signature McDonald's flavor to me. The other thing I find surprising is although there are 3 layers of bread in there, it doesn't feel too bready or taste too bready. The sauce is there to flavor everything, but it's not so saucy. As I recall, I felt like it was saucier as a child. And just a little bit of lettuce in there. Personally, I would like a little bit more lettuce, but then it wouldn't be a Big Mac. A little bit of cheese in there to give it a little extra richness, but nothing overpowers anything. It just all works together very, very nicely. The meat patties are very thin, don't really taste particularly beefy or flavorful. They're just hamburger patties, but they're there and it's delicious. And the buns are just really the delivery mechanism for the entire sandwich. But that's totally what I remember a Big Mac tasting. A little bit sweet as well. You get a little crunch of the pickle. Good. Alrighty, now let's compare it to the homemade version. Now this version is much thicker, much taller than the original. See that side by side? And I think some of that has to do with the patty thickness. The patty thickness is very uniform in the McDonald's one, and the buns seem to be a little bit thinner too. But alrighty, let's give this a go. Finally, here we go. Itadakimasu. That is a very good dupe. It's not exactly the same as McDonald's, but actually there are some parts of the homemade version that I actually prefer. It's more juicy and succulent, and I think that might have to do with the higher meat to bread ratio than the original, but not by much. It's still a very thin patty. And the amount of sauce in there I think is a little bit higher too. So it's just more succulent. And the amount of greens I think is pretty similar. The cheese is a little more meltier and it's just a little bit more flavorful, yet the original is still very good. Now, if I didn't have the original Big Mac next to me, I would say this is 100% like a Big Mac because it hits all of those flavor components. You have the special sauce, you have the crunch of the pickle, you have the crunch of the lettuce, you have a little bit of that cheese, the bun, and the 2 layers of patties. It tastes very, very much like a Big Mac. But when I have it side by side, it's not quite the same. The homemade one has a beefier flavor. It has more of those kind of grilled, meaty flavors that you get when you caramelize meat on a grill top, those little brown bits that we love so much. It has that flavor. It also has more of a texture too. The McDonald's one has a more uniform texture, while this one has a little more chew, a little bit more crumble to the meat itself. In terms of flavor, the McDonald's one is a little more homogeneous. It's a really great balance of salty, sweet, crunchy, tangy, creamy all together, while the homemade one, those bits are a little bit more distinctive. The beef patty is a little bit more separate. You get the ooze of the sauce more. You get the big crunch of the pickle. And it's a little more tangier. So the components of the homemade one I feel like are a little bit more separate and distinctive, while in the McDonald's one, everything is more homogeneous, which makes for a great total package. When you go there and you're like, yes, signature Big Mac right into my brain. And the homemade one definitely is a Big Mac too in all of its structure and form, but the flavors are more distinctive. And in my opinion, I like the homemade one better for those reasons. But having said that, for the amount of work, preparation, and cost that went into the homemade version of the Big Mac, it's hard to say that this actually beats the original, because you can just go through the drive-thru, pick this up, and have a meal right then and there of the classic traditional Big Mac that most of us know. Really good. Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. How are you? It's great to see you, and welcome back. Today, I'm going to be recreating in my kitchen a burger that's going to be launched in McDonald's locations in China, and it consists of Spam. Spam, of course, is the potted meat. I believe it's a portmanteau of spiced ham. It is much beloved and maligned all over the world, used in many, many different kinds of dishes. I find it so interesting how many flavors there are. I believe there are 13, and how many different uses have been found for Spam. When I say uses, I mean recipes. So many novel ways, and it is great because it is meat, it is protein that is shelf stable, you don't need to refrigerate it, and it was brought to many countries due to war. But I find it fascinating how it's just been embraced and incorporated into so many different cuisines around the world. So I'm going to be recreating this burger. Thank you so much to all of my beautiful lovers who got in touch with me about this Spam burger, because at first I thought it was a joke. I did some research, and it indeed is a real thing. The reason why I thought it was a joke was because Spam, that's fine. I can understand a Spam patty burger. But it is topped with crushed Oreos, crushed Oreo cookies, and mayonnaise. Yes, so in the photograph, it's not exactly clear. You see two Spam cutlets on top of each other. You see some crumbled Oreo cookies, and then you see a white substance. Well, it has been confirmed that that white substance is mayonnaise. So that seems to be, that's all in the sandwich. There's no veggie, there's no nothing. We've got a sesame seed bun, we've got mayo, we've got cookie crumbs, 2 slices of Spam, and then the bottom bun. That's it. So relatively easy to make. I am very curious to see how this combination is going to work. Spam is notoriously very, very salty, so 2 cutlets seems like quite a bit. I'm going to opt for the low sodium option because it has the same flavor but 25% less sodium. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to do the Oreo, and then I'm going to use my good old Kewpie mayo. Love this stuff, and it's very convenient to apply because it's got this nice little nozzle at the top. So let's go ahead and make this. We have to extricate the Spam out of the can. So it has a very convenient ring here. Crack that back. There it is. Immediately, we are struck with a smell of porky cannedness. It is familiar. It's like bologna, but tinned. Vienna sausages come to mind. Do you remember those Vienna sausages? So going to give the Spam a little squeeze. We're going to take our can opener and give this a little puncture. Once we do that, the Spam should just come right out once we give the can a squeeze. Bum, 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 bum. There it is. Dun, 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 dun. Spam. Look at that, all in its pink glory. So next we need to slice our Spam, and look, I've got the perfect gadget for it. Dun, 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 dun. This is a meat slicer that is specifically made for slicing Spam, for musubi. So popular in Hawaii, and if you are curious and want to make it yourself, I'll put a link down below to the recipe video I made a few years ago. Essentially, we've got a hard-boiled egg slicer. My mom had a mini version of this specifically made for hard-boiled eggs. We've got very taut wires here. We're going to place the Spam this way, right on, look, there's a little shelf on it. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, I'm gonna hold this down. It's doing it, it's doing it. Beautiful. So those wires are pulled taut enough that they actually act like little knives. We're through. And look, perfectly sliced Spam. Oh, I love that. Each one of these slices is perfectly sliced. There are no angles, no wonky pieces. The luncheon meat slicer works like a charm if you make lots of musubis. This might be the gadget for you because there's no waste whatsoever. You don't have any wonky pieces. Next, I'm going to chop up some Oreos. The crumbs they show in the advertisements look very even, almost cube-like. So I'm gonna give them a chop rather than kind of crumbling them. So let's just grab a good stack. That's a stack of 5. What I find slightly puzzling is that the Oreo crumbs they show in the photograph in the advertisement, you don't see any of the white cream. It's just the black cookie crumbs. Is it an Oreo without the cream? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm gonna eat this right now. Oreos are so good. I don't have them too often, but when I do, I'm just like, yes. It makes me immediately crave milk. Just like, where's milk? Cold glass of milk, please. I'm not a milk drinker even, but Oreos elicits that Pavlovian instinct of like, milk. Amazing. So now we've got to cook up our Spam. Spam, of course, is already cooked. We're just gonna get some caramelization on the outside of it, okay? I've also got some sesame seed buns, nothing fancy here. I chose to get a smaller size because I am replicating the McDonald's burger after all. What is that? That is not a sesame seed. Set that one aside. Just put a little slick of oil here. Wipe that on there just a little bit. I'm gonna go for the center cut of the loin right here. I'm gonna take this one right there. Yep. And the photograph shows 2, so we're doing 2. So when it comes to caramelizing your meat, don't move it, don't touch it. Just let it sit there for a little while. You can touch the meat in a minute, but not yet. Okay, I'm gonna give this a little flip. Beautiful. Okay. Number 2. Now that our meat is almost done, I'm going to toast up our buns just a little bit. Buns, toasted, nice. I'm going to use my burger flipper here. Oh yeah, beautiful. It's good to use a nice metal scraper. I'm using a pan that's not non-stick so we can just scrape all that beautiful fond, all that crispy goodness. It tends to want to stick to the pan. So something floppy like this, not so great. You want something that has a nice edge that can get off. All right, you hear that? That's caramelization. I just saw on Instagram, Chinese Cooking Demystified went and actually tasted one of these. They're located in China, of course, where they can purchase one of these. These are only offered for limited time only, apparently. They're only making 400,000, so they say. And they show the inside of it, and indeed, it's just 3 components. Mayo, Oreo cookie, and Spam. There's actually not that much mayo. So I'm gonna put some mayo on the bottom, take our Spam cutlet, place one right on top there. Second piece going across, like that. We've got a plus sign. Now we're gonna put a layer of Oreo cookies right on top. Wow. Now we're gonna take some mayo and put it right on top. Boom. Alrighty, my lovelies, here it is, the Oreo Spam Burger. It actually doesn't smell half bad. It smells like fried meat, for sure, like fried bologna. And then I'm getting kind of warm smells of chocolate baked goods. Interesting. And if I get up close, I can smell May. I'm gonna cut this in half so you can see the cross section here. Boop, ba-da-boo, ba-doo, boo. Typically, you wouldn't do this when you're eating at McDonald's, but I just wanted to see what it would look like in cross section. Alrighty, let's give this a go. Itadakimasu. Interesting. The cookies are very crunchy, which I like, but it's very unexpected. The combination of cookie and Spam, though, tastes almost burnt. I definitely did not burn my Spam, but there's kind of a smoky, acrid flavor going on here. What? Very confused. I'm gonna try again. I'm also surprised that I don't find this too salty. I did use the 25% less sodium version of Spam, but there are 2 pieces of it on this bun. And there's probably a total of at least 1 Oreo cookie on there, so I think that sweetness really offsets that amount of salt. Here's a better cross-section of the hamburger experience, but I am not shaking that acrid flavor. I'm gonna try removing the Oreos and just having the Spam and the mayonnaise together, see if that makes a difference. That actually is good. The mayo adds some richness. It's a reminder, an indicator that this is a sandwich. Adds even more salt, but that richness really works. And then the Spam is warm and it's got a little bit of a crust on the outside. I think it might be the chocolate in combination with the mayo and the Spam that's giving that kind of acrid, almost burnt flavor, which I find really surprising. I was just imagining it was going to be sweet, and it was a sweet and salty combination. I was thinking this might actually work, but I don't think it does. So final thoughts on this, now that I've polished off half of this sandwich, is that this tastes a lot like a burnt sweet hot dog. When I say hot dog, I mean the vein of bologna, Vienna sausage. And say you toast it on the campfire and it's gone a little bit too long, you've got a nice blackened hot dog like that with a little bit of sugar. I don't taste the Oreo flavor itself in combination with the pork. It just becomes this kind of acrid flavor, which I don't really care for. Alone, the Spam grilled with mayonnaise on the bun is actually quite tasty. But with the Oreos, it doesn't work for me. Alrighty, my lovelies, there you have it. That's how you recreate the Spam Oreo burger. Very simple, easy to do. If you're curious, why not try it? If you don't like it, you'll have a bunch of Spam you could use for making fried rice or Spam musubi. You'll have Oreos to consume a multitude of different ways. My favorite is just dunking them in some cold milk, and yeah, then you'll have your curiosity sated. Or you could just take my word for it and go with that. Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. How are you? It's great to see you and welcome back. Now today I'm going to be making a little potato dish that is inspired by McDonald's. I'm going to be making McDonald's style hash browns at home. Hash browns, hash browns. I remember as a kid, as a treat, we would sometimes get McDonald's breakfast, and the hash browns were one of my favorite parts of that entire meal. The crispy outside and just eating it out of that little sleeve, so stinking great. Or sometimes putting it in the actual sandwich and eating it all together. Yes. So I have the YouTube algorithm to thank for today's inspiration. I'm going to be using Melmasa's or Delicious Days channel recipe. I'll put a link down below to the original, and it looks absolutely delicious and relatively simple to make. So let's go ahead and do this. So a little while back, I made McDonald's style French fries at home. I'll put a link down below in case you missed that video. And that recipe came from McMenu, which was written by a former employee of McDonald's and has very detailed directions on how to make McDonald's style food, including French fries. And I looked in that recipe collection for hash browns, and they actually actually said to buy the frozen Oreo variety because they're too difficult to make, which I completely understand. There might be some industrial machinations that make this more challenging, but Delicious Day's recipe looks so delicious that I'm going to be trying it anyways, because fried potatoes, it's hard to go wrong with that. To start off, we're going to need some potatoes, and I'm going to be using a combination of russet and Yukon Gold in 1-to-1 ratio. So, whoa! I will put a link down below to a printable version of this recipe, or you can visit my website to find it there as well. We're going to peel our potatoes. McDonald's has a special variety of potato they use for their French fries, and I imagine the same would be said of their hash browns, because I was not able to find the particular style of potato to use for this recipe. But I'm combining a starchy potato, which is found in the russets, and a Yukon Gold, which are waxier. They're not as starchy, so we'll get that kind of combination of starch and waxiness, which I am imagining is going to help us with retaining the shape of the hash brown. Because once we chop these up into little bits, we need it to stick together and kind of hold its shape rather than falling apart. If you don't have both potatoes, I think russets will be just fine. I'm also going to go ahead and remove these eyes so that our hash browns don't have any dark bits in them. So just using my de-iyer, what do you call that? Eye remover? That sounds terrible. I'm just going to scoop out these little bits right here. If you are short on time, you can skip this step, or you really don't care, then that's fine too. It's not going to change the flavor of the potatoes at all doing this. It's just more of an aesthetic thing, you know? All right, I'm gonna give these a quick rinse and put all of the peels in my compost bucket. Do you compost? I love composting. I find it so satisfying not letting my food scraps go to waste. It makes beautiful soil. It does take some time. We don't have a very technical method in our yard. We have a big pile. We add lots of leaves to it. My husband very kindly turns everything. If you don't have a lot of space, then you can try vermicomposting, which is using composting worms. Really cool. You can even do that inside your house. I've done it. Super cool. And composting is great. And a lot of people, I think the number one question I get when I post composting bits on my Insta stories is, does it smell? And it does not. And it's because my husband turns it. It's also because it's just decomposing into soil. So it's not an issue, the smell. I think the second most popular question is, do I get pests? And I'm sure I get squirrels and raccoons and things going through it, but we are blessed with having enough space that it's not near our house, and I really don't mind having the animals root through it and get little tasty bits of strawberry tops, potato peelings. I don't mind it. So we're going to chop them and then place the chopped bits into a strainer. Remember, this is a very specific style of hash browns. This is like the ovoid puck that's deeply fried and nicely crispy and golden. It's not the kind of griddle variety that's made with shredded potatoes. So cut these into little sticks. I'm gonna rotate the board here. Chop these into little bits. I have my potatoes all chopped up, and now we are going to rinse them with plenty of water. Now, Delicious Day says this is important because it will remove excess starch and make for a crisper hash brown. So after we've rinsed the potatoes, I'm going to thoroughly drain them of the excess water. Now I've got a skillet. I'm going to put it on medium high heat and add some oil, a couple tablespoons. I'm going to cook these on medium heat for 5 to 10 minutes until they are mostly cooked, but we don't want them to get any color. We're not frying them, we're just cooking them initially so that we don't have any raw bits. in our hash brown. We don't want any raw bits in our hash browns. Now we're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. It's been about 6 minutes and the potatoes are ready. We taste one. They're tender, but not mushy. So turn off the heat and transfer them to a bowl. To the hot spuds, we're going to add 6 tablespoons of cornstarch. Now we're going to mix this all together till it binds together to make a potato paste. We're basically making a dough here. We want this mixture to hold its shape because we're going to be frying it. This might do it. Let's see. Yeah. So I'm going to take about 2/3 of this potato mixture and place it on some parchment paper. I'm reserving 1/3 of it because I'm going to try a cheese stuffed version of this. So get it kind of into a rough patty. Cover that with a piece of plastic wrap and then use a rolling pin to flatten it out. And these are about 1/2 inch thick. Dun, 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 dun. I'm going to clean up the edges and then cut this into thirds. Spatula and scoop it up. And to make it more like the hash brown shape, we're just going to round the corners out. And there we have it. That's so great. I'm going to add these little bits back to the bowl with the other potatoes. And now let's make a cheese version. But this time, we're going to roll it out a little bit thinner, about 1/4 inch, because we're going to combine 2 halves together. So inside of these hash browns, I'm going to add some mozzarella cheese for that great cheese pull effect. And I'm just using sliced mozzarella cheese. Use any cheese you like. So I'm doubling up the cheese layer there. And now we're going to take 1 piece of the potato and place it right on top of the other. Then press so that the 2 halves can adhere together. And then of course we have to round out the corners. Alrighty, so I've got my skillet here with about 1/2 inch of vegetable oil heating up on medium-high heat. And I've got it to about 325 degrees. We can check by using a little bit of potato and dropping it in there. And it immediately sizzles up. Now we're gently going to add our potatoes to the oil. And we've got that beautiful sizzle. These are the regular potatoes, no cheese. Move them over a little bit so they don't stick to the bottom of the pan. And this one right here is our cheese one. So we'll add that in there as well. Okay, these are frying beautifully. It smells like French fries. Oh, I'm so excited about this. Ever so gently, give it a flip. Be gentle with these. We don't want them to crumble apart. Okay, so I think we're getting close here. Look at that. Perfection. Perfection. Drain these onto a rack that's lined with paper towels. Oh my gosh. Look at that. Look at that. That's perfection. Oh my gosh, I'm excited about this. Oh my goodness, lovelies, look at these. These look absolutely perfect. I'm so happy with how these turned out. Golden brown, perfectly shaped. They look absolutely delicious. Now for the moment of truth, we shall taste them. I'm so happy with how these look. So stinking great. Gorgeous, golden brown, beautiful. Listen to how crispy these are. Itadakimasu. Delicious. perfect amount of seasoning, nicely salted, crisp on the outside, creamy in the middle. I actually like the homemade ones slightly better than the McDonald's version, if that's possible. The potatoes are creamier. Look inside. Hot and steamy and creamy and soft and tender, and have a wonderful potato flavor, perfect amount of salt. So stinking delicious. I really like the buttery, creamy texture of these potatoes on the inside. Granted, these just came out of the fryer. They're so stinking hot and delicious. So sometimes that's the issue with French fries or hash browns. They've just been sitting too long. These, though, are wonderful. I did read that, like the McDonald's French fries, the McDonald's hash browns also contain some beef tallow, so it has a beefy flavor to them. I didn't notice any kind of difference when I tasted these. Let's try the cheese version. Oh my gosh. Wow. Amazing. Alrighty, let's give this a taste. Wait, let's give this side a taste. That's where the cheese is. Here we go. That is delicious. And that's surprising because I actually am not a huge cheese lover. I don't like everything covered in cheese. I do like cheese, but not gobbed on over. But this combination is delicious. The mozzarella has a very delicate flavor. It pairs perfectly with the potato, and that cheese pull is so much fun. It's not overly salty. It's the perfect balance of cheese and deep fried potato goodness. Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. How are you? It's great to see you, and welcome back. So today, lovelies, we're going to be going back in time and attempting to recreate McDonald land cookies. Now, these were cookies that were sold at McDonald's, and I believe in sometime in the 1990s they were discontinued. They came in a box. I don't recall ever eating them. I believe they were chocolate chip cookies and ones that were a bit like animal crackers. And looking back at the photos on the internet, the boxes do look very, very familiar. So recently I did a couple taste tests of McDonald's Happy Meals, including the adult Happy Meal and the Halloween McBoo Happy Meals. And in the comments, a few of you lovelies requested that I recreate the McDonald land cookies. And here I am to do that. So the first thing I did was go to eBay and find these. And these are actual vintage McDonald cookie cutters that came in Happy Meals. And these are stamped from 1980. These ones right here, 1980. So these are quite old. These are, yes, these are over 40 years old. Yeah, these are like 42 years old. And then I was able to find this one as well. And this one's a little bit newer. This is from 1986, I believe. This is from 1987. So this is Ronald juggling some McDonald's spheres. So I'm going to be using these cookie cutters to make cookies. I also did this. I made a McDonald land cookie box. This box, understandably, is much larger, I believe, than what the original was. This, I believe, is from 1970s sometime, but I saw it and thought I'd recreate it. Yeah, I went the extra mile and did that. Super fun, right? So let's make some cookies to put in our cookie box. But before we make the cookies, let's do a little taste test. These are Benton's Animal Crackers. Benton's is the brand, the house brand from Aldi, and so many people on the internet say these taste almost identical to the original McDonald land cookies, which I never had. So just for a little bit of a benchmark, let's give these a taste. These were $3.49, I believe, for 13 ounces. So let's give them a taste. Here are the cookies. We have a gorilla, zebra, rhino, looks like part of a sheep, part of a monkey. There's a sheep, baboon of some kind, not sure. So in my experience, there are two kind of varieties of animal crackers. There's ones that are more harder and less sweet and more like a teething biscuit. And then there are ones that are kind of more like this, a little bit more like a cookie or shortbread. Let's give this a taste. Here we go. The animal cookies that I remember growing up with, my mom would get them on occasion for me, came in a box with a little string. I believe Nabisco makes them, correct me if I'm wrong. And these ones taste similar to those, although I remember those ones to be a little bit more crumbly. These are quite firm. They have a kind of lemony vanilla flavor to them, or citrusy vanilla flavor to them. Quite hard. Lightly sweetened, but not the other variety of animal cracker, which are, like I said, more crackerish. I prefer this kind, and pretty good. They also kind of have a shortbready but slightly dissolvable crumb texture to them. Not as crumbly as a shortbread, a little firmer. So since I don't have the originals to taste, we're going to use this as our little benchmark to see how successful our homemade version is. So let's go ahead and get started. So the recipe I'm going to be adapting today comes from Bigger Bolder Baking, and I'll put a link down below to the original. Alrighty, in a large bowl, because we are grown up and we know that a large bowl is good for using an electric mixer with, we're going to be creaming some room temperature butter. And I'm going to be using just a little over a stick. Make sure the butter is at room temperature so you can mix it easily. Now to the butter, we're going to be adding some sugar and some honey. That was a 1/4 cup of sugar and 2 tablespoons of honey. This is honey that came out of my own hives. If you haven't seen my beekeeping videos, that's on my other channel. It's from a few years ago, but I still do keep bees. You can check that out. I'll put a link to it down below. I'm going to cream this together until it's light and fluffy and pale yellow in color. A little tip, if your butter is cold, one way to get it up to room temperature is to place your butter on a plate and then have a glass of boiling water next to it. Then cover the whole thing with a bowl, let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes, and your butter will be nice and soft but not melted. All right, light and creamy. And now we're going to add 1 egg and 1 teaspoon of extract. Now from the King Arthur Flour website, I learned of this. This is Princess Cake and Cookie Bakery Emulsion. Have you ever heard of this before? I had not, and they said that this is the smell. Apparently my oven is ready and it wants to interrupt me, but that's all right. It's all good. This is the magic ingredient to getting that lemony cookie flavor that you find in animal crackers. And I don't know why it's called Princess Cake and Cookie. And it's an emulsion, it's not an extract. So there's gotta be some artificial flavors in that. I don't know. We wanna get the authentic taste, so we're doing this. Alrighty, 1 teaspoon of fresh princess. Whoa, look, it comes out like that. That's why it's called an emulsion. Look, it's like milky. Ooh, okay. In that goes. And whisk that in. Scrape down the sides. When I looked on the box of Benton's, it just says natural flavoring. It doesn't say specifically what kind. So maybe that is the secret, right? Okay, now we need 1 teaspoon of baking powder. My 1 teaspoon is covered with Princess Cake, so let's use 2 half teaspoons. And we're gonna add some flour, 2 cups, and I'm gonna gradually add this in as well. And that's basically our dough. This is getting pretty tough, so I think the rest I'm gonna do by hand. So once we form this into a dough, we are going to wrap it and let it rest for half an hour or so, and that makes it easier to handle. And we're also going to put it in the refrigerator, and that'll firm up the butter a bit. So chilling it, that will stiffen the dough up a bit and make it easier to cut out. Alrighty, I'll see you in a little bit. Alrighty, lovelies, let us roll out our dough. Now, the way my cookie cutters are, there's a lot of detail in these cookie cutters, and I'm imagining that they're going to want to stick. So I'm going to make sure I flour these really well and make sure that the dough is not too thick so that these won't be hard to extricate. We shall see. I think I'm going to work with half this at a time. It's a lot of dough. And use some flour to dust everything so nothing sticks. And make sure to move the dough constantly so that it too doesn't stick. Thick enough to get the impression of all of these details, but not so thick that my cutter will get buried. So I'm going to use a pastry brush and really get flour into all those nooks and crannies of Grimace. And when I bought these on eBay, there was some residual dough, so I made sure to give these a very good cleaning. There's some vintage cookie dough in there as well. Let's see how this works. All right, Grimace, here we go. All right, I hope you come out. Well, dough is in there. Now how do we get the cookie out? Okay, this is looking good. Okay, here we go. Yes. Come on. Come on, Grimace, we gotta get your name. Ta-da! Hooray! Look! Perfect cookie. Yes! Grimace looks so good. Yes, yes, yes! I even got his mouth. Ha ha ha! Okay. Yes, I'm so pleased. Okay, let's see if we can get similar results with Ronald. So again, flour all those little nooks and crannies. Flour the surface of the dough a bit. And let's try to get Ronald in here. Lift. Ooh, this one just came out on its own. Nice! Ooh! Okay. Yes, this one turned out lovely as well. Ta-da! Ronald. Oh my goodness, yes. Now let's do juggling Ronald. I don't think he's, I don't know, is he juggling? Press hard so we get all those details. Okay, here we go, lift. Okay, this one, like Grimace, looks like it's a little bit stuck. Oh no, at least this part's lifting out. Okay, good. This one has more detail in the hands. Come on. This one's a little sketch. Ooh. Whoa. This one has a ton of detail. Oh my goodness. This one was very, it fought me a little bit because of the feet and the little tiny hands. But we did get a whole one. But we got one. Yeah. Alrighty. So I'm going to continue doing this. And my light is falling. Alrighty, so I'm going to pop these into a preheated 350-degree oven and bake them for 12 to 15 minutes until they are baked but not too golden. And then we're going to let them cool for 15 minutes before we give them a taste. Alrighty, see you when these cookies are done. Alrighty, my lovelies, my homemade McDonald's land cookies are finished and they look so good. Look at them. So stinking great. They did not spread at all and they smell terrific. I smell more of a kind of vanilla scent as they were baking as opposed to that lemony scent. Look at this box. I love it so much. My box turned out so great and I will fill it up with the cookies once they're completely cooled, but let's go ahead and give them a taste. Now, Grimace is my favorite. It's so cute. And this one was more finicky because there was more details, like the little toes and hands wanted to get stuck in the cookie cutter. But the McDonald's ones came out great. Lots of detail. And let's give them a taste. I'm going to eat Grimace. Grimace is my favorite. Alrighty, let's give them a taste. Here we go. Itadakimasu. The first thing I noticed is that it's lacking that big crunch. You know, the crunch of the Benton's animal crackers. 37 more seconds. Granted, these are still slightly warm. Maybe they'll stiffen up a bit more once they're completely cold, but the flavor is really good. I think the princess cake and cookie emulsion tastes very similar to the Benton's. In fact, let me grab one of those. See how that's so crunchy? Much crunchier, and now that I've tasted it, a little bit sweeter. These are very light on the sweetness, which I like, especially if you're going to be giving these to young children. Oh, okay. These are done. And what's also different from these have a little bit more of a shortbready texture, a little bit more crumbly, and a really great butter flavor, which doesn't exist, in my opinion, in the animal crackers or the Benton ones, or what I imagine the McDonald's cookies taste like. Having said that, this is a good cookie. If I were to make these again, I would use a little bit more extract. I just used 1 teaspoon. I would use 1.5. I'd never used this before, so I didn't know how strong it was going to be. But in terms of flavor profile, it tastes exactly like an animal cookie, which is a combination to me of a lemony flavor, a slightly vanilla nuttiness, and just a hint of kind of a nutmeggy spice. In terms of recipe, this is a good cookie, but it is not an exact dupe of the animal crackers. Perhaps rolled out a little bit thinner so they're a little bit crisper and harder. Or made with margarine instead of butter. I really taste the butter in these, which I quite like. Makes them taste like shortbread, but it doesn't taste like an animal cracker, which I feel tastes more neutral. It's more about this flavoring than the buttery flavor. Having said that, these cookies are delicious, and the cookie cutters worked out great. I was expecting a lot of dough getting stuck in these, but it did not. Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. How are you? It's great to see you, and welcome back. So today I'm going to be cooking what I think might be the original McDonald's French fry recipe. I was inspired to make this recipe by an article I read in Atlas Obscura written by Luke Fatter and his quest to find the original recipe. Now, what's so interesting about this recipe, which I had heard before, was that the original recipe, the fries were cooked in beef tallow. Beef tallow, of course, is beef fat. Now, a little history about McDonald's. McDonald's was originally owned by the McDonald's brothers. Richard and Maurice McDonald had a burger stand dating from 1954 in San Bernardino, California, and they cooked their fries in beef tallow, which in the 1950s and prior to, which was very, very common and, if you can imagine, very, very delicious. Several years later, Ray Kroc, who at the time was the milkshake machine salesperson, decided to buy McDonald's, and the rest is sort of history. He made it into a franchise, and now we have McDonald's everywhere. But Ray knew that the fries were the key to the success of McDonald's. People loved the fries. At the time, the potatoes were peeled and cooked fresh, and they were cooked in beef tallow. In order to reduce costs, McDonald's came up with something called Formula 47, which was based on the McDonald's meal price of 47 cents, but it was a combination of vegetable oil and beef tallow to fry the fries in. So fast forward to the 1990s, a fellow named Phil Sokoloff made it his ambition, after having a heart attack at a very young age, to combat fat, and went on this huge campaign that was self-funded to obliterate saturated fats and fats. So in the 1990s, there was huge fads of non-fat this, non-fat that. And McDonald's, of course, was not excluded in that campaign, and in July 1990, they changed the formula in which they fried their fries, and now they are fried in a combination of soybean and canola oil. So the recipe that I'm going to be using also has a little mystique and mystery. It's called the McMenu, and it is a 33-page document that has the recipe for all kinds of things from McDonald's, including the Big Mac, the hamburger, and the fries. The author is anonymous, but claims to be a former manager in the 1980s. It also includes a McRib recipe. So very fascinating to not only test out this recipe, but to also compare it to the fries of McDonald's today. And I'm also very curious about the homemade Big Mac and the hamburger as well. I have very fond memories of eating McDonald's hamburgers as a child. They were a treat, and they were my favorite. And I am not surprised in the least. When I was pregnant with my first child, I craved McDonald's hamburgers. I was living in Japan at the time, and every Friday on my lunch break, I would ride my bicycle to McDonald's so I could have a McDonald's burger. So interesting how the mind and food connections work. At any rate, let's go ahead and make these fries. First thing you're gonna do is take 2 large russet potatoes and peel them. And next you're going to slice them. And the best tool to use for this to get nice even cuts is a mandolin. So mandolins are great tools, but they're super dangerous. Make sure to use the included guard. You wanna have fries that are 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch and about 4 to 6 inches long. Next, you're gonna make a sugary bath. This is gonna help get them nice and browned. So in a large bowl, add 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of corn syrup, 1.5 cups of hot water. Whisk this all together so all the sugar and the corn syrup dissolve, and then add your potatoes. Place this bowl in the refrigerator and let it cool for 30 minutes. Also on the side here, I've got 6 cups of Crisco shortening that I'm heating up to 375 degrees. Here are the drained potatoes. Since I'm not wearing my glasses, it's probably not a bad idea to have some safety measures. Okay, safety first. This reaction is going to be furious. Here we go. Ah. Right? Holy camolies. Make sure there's a lot of room in your pot. Jeez. Give these a nudge. After a minute, we're supposed to take the fries out. That was some reaction. I only have my pot filled to 1/3 capacity. And when I added the fries, that went right to the top. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fry these twice. This is just the first kind of oil blanch. Now we're gonna cool these off for 10 minutes in the refrigerator. So beef tallow, of course, is beef fat, and I rendered this from the roast that we had for Christmas dinner. Super easy. You cut up the bits of fat, you put it in a small saucepan, and put it on low, medium low, and let it melt. Once it's all rendered and melted, I took a coffee filter and I filtered the fat and got this beautiful cup of tallow. So this is great for frying in. Of course, it's a saturated fat, but you just don't use as much, but full of beefy flavor. Now we're gonna add this to our oil. Safety first. So here we go. Oh, and they float right up. Much gentler fry this time. Nice. Wow, look how quickly they fry up. They're turning golden so fast. These take no time at all to fry. Put them into my bowl here. Take some regular table salt. Give those a toss. Alrighty, let's eat it while it's hot. Here we go. Itadakimasu. Slightly sweet, nice and salty. Such a great potato flavor. Clean, distinctive potato flavor. A bit sweeter than what I recall McDonald's French fries tasting like, which, ta-da-da, we're gonna do a side-by-side comparison. This isn't exactly fair because these are not piping hot like these, but these are scrum-diddly-umptious. Here's the OG McDonald's fries. We see that the McDonald's is actually much thicker than mine. Mine is more like a shoestring potato, very thin. And McDonald's don't seem to be as golden as mine. Mine are much more golden in color. See that? These have been sitting around for a while. So they've got kind of that spongy, drier texture. It's not really a fair comparison because I just fried these and these are warm and crunchy and delicious. McDonald's fries are notorious for going stale very, very quickly. They should be only eaten when they're very hot and right out of the fryer, and then they're delicious. I don't taste the specific tallow flavor per se. These are just more delicious. They have more complex flavor. They're both sweet and salty and potatoey. It should be noted that this is a very particular type of French fry. It's a shoestring potato style. If you like big fat wedges of potato. This is not the French fry for you. So the next time I make these, I'm gonna look for a mandolin slicer that can cut potato slices a little bit fatter. These were a little bit too skinny for my taste, although they were delicious. I want a little bit more of a substantial bite. So there you have it. I tested what might be the original McDonald's French fry recipe. Absolutely delicious. I wish I could say with 100% certainty that this is the correct recipe, but since I wasn't alive to have them then, I'll just have to go with the fact that they are stinking delicious. Alrighty, thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed that one. I hope you learned something. Please share this video with your friends. Follow me on social media, like this video, subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye! I'm walking on sunshine.